What's going on, guys? Welcome back, and today I am going to be talking about The West Wing. I've been meaning to make a video on this show for around a month since I finished watching it, but I wasn't sure how to approach it, because it's such a vast and complicated story with much to be analyzed. So this might come off a little bit all over the place. I've tried to be as concise as possible, but scripting this video proved to be a difficult process. If you somehow don't know what this show is about, it focuses on the fictional President Josiah or Jed Bartlet and his group of White House staffers as they try to navigate their way through his 2 terms as President of the United States. This show is beloved and acclaimed by almost everyone, but for some reason I was skeptical about watching it despite my parents pleading for me to do so. I finally caved in back in November, and over the course of the last 4 months or so, my mom and I binged through all 7 seasons of the show. And all I can say is it's probably some of the best television I've ever seen. It's simply a remarkable piece of storytelling. There are many reasons for this. One of them is the fantastic writing. Aaron Sorkin is renowned for his exquisite script writing skills. He's worked on great classic films like The Social Network or Moneyball, another film that I really enjoyed, and he brings this energy to the show that never lets up. The characters are talking quickly or moving fast while delivering lines of dialogue, which keeps the pace up constantly, even after Sorkin leaves the show around the end of Season 4 or beginning of Season 5, which is when I heard the show started to decline. But I didn't find that at all. The series never dips in quality throughout its entire run. The show also clearly has a firm grasp on real-world issues. I've seen a lot of people saying that this show is an idealized version of American politics, and while I can understand that because the characters almost always make the morally righteous choice at every turn, that doesn't make their choices any less difficult. This is a story about the weight placed on people in high positions of power and how challenging it can be for them to navigate a country and really a world with such a tainted history. The show asks difficult questions and presents hard truths. It delves deep into issues like crime, poverty, trauma, relationships with third world countries, and crossing moral and legal lines to do the right thing. And that's not even scratching the surface. These ideas are only strengthened even further by how they affect the characters and their relationships with each other. Speaking of the characters, it's difficult to identify any bad ones. Aside from Amy Gardner, who's just an endlessly selfish jerk who does everything for her own benefit at the cost of everyone else, yet the show insists to bring her back whenever possible, which I'll never understand, because no one inside or outside the show finds her remotely likable at all. But when you've got a 7-season show, and there are only 1 or 2 bad characters, that's a notable achievement, in my opinion. Overall, this is one of the most well-realized casts of characters I've ever seen, because they all feel like real, flawed people, and generally this is just a stacked cast. Martin Sheen obviously kills it as Bartlet, Allison Janney as C.J. Craig, arguably the most well-developed character in the series, one of my personal favorites, Janelle Maloney as Donna, even Jimmy Smits, who a lot of you may know as Bail Organa from Star Wars, shows up in the final 2 seasons as one of the candidates running for presidency, and he was phenomenal, delivering some kick-ass speeches towards the end of the show, and even minor characters who maybe only appear for 1 episode leave a major impact. John Goodman shows up for like 3 episodes, and he absolutely devours the scenery every time he's on screen. Unfortunately, if I were to list off every character I liked in this show, I'd literally be here forever, so I'll try to examine the complexity of character work in the show through my two personal favorites, Toby Ziegler and Leo McGarry. Toby isn't someone you'd usually consider as being a nice guy. He's kind of a nihilist with a rather gloomy outlook on the world, but he's also compassionate, a trait we see demonstrated as early as Season 1, when he goes out of his way to hold a funeral for a homeless veteran who froze to death on the street. Of all the characters, he's one of the few who frequently voices his displeasure regarding decisions made by Bartlett and Leo, which gets him into some hot water during the final season. Without spoiling anything, the actor Richard Schiff was actually displeased with the direction they took his character in, but I didn't have any problems with it. I thought it was logical and added some ambiguity to the conclusion of the story. And Leo is by far my favorite character in this show, portrayed brilliantly by the incredible John Spencer. Rest in peace. He's a Vietnam War veteran with a lot of skeletons in his closet as he has a history of drug and alcohol abuse, but he's also the most kind and caring character in the show. You see how he sincerely loves his friends and colleagues. He's the closest to President Bartlett, so when those two argue, you can feel the raw emotion emanating from their performances. He's also unshakable in his beliefs. If he's committed to a course of action, he will not deviate. Despite being constantly beaten down and dragged through the mud, he always chooses the high road. Just such a noble and respectable character who might go down as one of my favorite fictional characters of all time at this point. As I said earlier, this show never really dips in quality. It's one of the most consistent television shows I've ever watched in that regard. Endings are arguably the most important part of a story, and The West Wing never misses with its finales. Spoiler alert for a 25-year-old season of television, the first season ends on a shocking cliffhanger with a traumatizing terrorist attack. And after that, I asked myself, how could they possibly top that? But to my dismay, every season continually found ways to raise the stakes and increase the drama. Although the final two seasons are lower stakes in the fact that no one's lives are on the line, it still feels incredibly intense due to how well they've emotionally invested you in the journeys of all the characters. By the way, can I just quickly point out how underrated the soundtrack for this show is? I mean, just listen to this frickin' amazing opening title theme. Now I'm going to be a little bit nitpicky and try to criticize the show. By the end of it, I was kind of unhappy with how they handled the character Charlie. Don't get me wrong, I like Charlie a lot. He's a really good character who has a fun dynamic with the rest of the cast, but he's so crucial to the story in so many ways. Two of the season finales hinge on his actions, and despite that, we never really see how he feels about these incredibly significant events throughout his life and the story of the show. Instead, we have other characters talking about how he's feeling, or we never find out how he's feeling at all. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the stereotype of the token black character. I don't think Charlie is that. He has a lot of depth to him, but it feels like they only ever explore it on a surface level. And at the end of the day, they inadvertently gave into the stereotype they were trying to avoid. One other thing is you can kind of tell how many high-paid actors they had involved in the show, but not enough money to pay them to be in every episode. So, towards the end of the show, especially in Season 7, a character will be very important in one episode, disappear for 1 or 2 episodes, then suddenly reappear, and you're just like, wait, where'd you go, dude? It's not that big a deal. As I said, I'm grasping at straws here, but it was slightly distracting. And that's pretty much it for this video. I would love to talk more about The West Wing, because there's so much to be said about this show, but unfortunately, I just don't have that kind of time. I tried my best to communicate all my points effectively and express why I think this show is fantastic, but I'll just hand it off to you guys now. What are your thoughts on The West Wing if you've seen it? Do you agree with me that it's one of the best TV shows ever made? Or do you disagree with me? Or have you just not seen it at all and this video has convinced you to check it out? Just whatever your thoughts are. Please let me know them all in the comments below. And of course, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.